Welcome to the Standard Deviations podcast, presented by Orion Advisor Solutions and hosted by Dr. Daniel Crosby, Orion's Chief Behavioral Officer and New York Times best-selling author. Each week, Dr. Crosby interviews a fascinating new guest on a range of compelling topics, from literature to psychology to financial wellness. To learn more about Dr. Crosby's behavioral finance work at Orion, visit www.orion.com.
Hello and welcome to the Standard Deviations podcast. I am your host, Dr. Daniel Crosby, and I'm joined today by Dr. Ali McCarthy, founder of Amplify Your Voice, a marketing agency that does fractional CMO work. Most importantly, for our purposes here today, she has a PhD in emotional intelligence, and that will be what we're here to talk about today. Dr. Ali, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Daniel. It's great to be with you today.
Yes, it's great. We had a nice little catch up here. I have to send a quick shout out to you before we get started. Ali is the source, the wellspring of any good thing that has ever happened to me professionally. So I would be remiss if I did not note that, and thank you for that. You took a chance on me in the early days when nobody was taking a chance on me, and every opportunity I've had since then has been a result of that, and I'm forever grateful to you. So thank you.
Oh man, Daniel, that's awesome. Thanks for saying that. But we have had such a great time all these years together. I have had so much joy working together with you, and it was great to be able to have your expertise and give you a platform, and you took it and ran from there. So it's all about, getting those opportunities and seizing the moment. And I couldn't say more of wonderful things about you and how much fun we've had working together. So thanks for the friendship all these years as well.
Of course, we've had some fun. We've done some amazing work. So let's get into emotional intelligence, though.
Yep.
This was the subject of your PhD, specifically the application of emotional intelligence, the study of emotional intelligence as it intersects with the world of advice. So we'll get there in a moment. But let's start big picture. Let's get definitional. I feel like oftentimes there's these words that everyone kind of throws around, but only has sort of a vague understanding of what they mean. And I think emotional intelligence is definitely fits the bill. So give us the doctor version. Like what's a deeper dive on emotional intelligence definitionally?
So I think that it's important to note that emotions ride through so many of the decisions we make, right? And we know that because we've talked about that over the years. But I think when you look at specifically emotional intelligence, it's really three things. It's the ability to understand how emotions are impacting your decision making and how you are seeing the world. Also, how it's impacting others. And so how do you express yourself externally? And then how do you adapt and flex to be able to have mutually beneficial relationships? So it's this notion of knowing yourself, being able to read emotions in other people, and then being able to have relationships that are productive without letting emotions override anything.
Yeah, and when I think about the three facets of that definition, I think probably only the second third of that gets factored into sort of most people's definitions of emotional intelligence. But it's all about sort of that internal experience. How is emotion impacting you? How is it impacting other people? And then thirdly, like kind of how can you influence it, right? Like how can you use emotion as a tool and influence or persuade others? When you start to talk about that, though, I think people can sometimes get a little squirmy, right? Because the idea of using emotion or understanding emotion, being cognizant of emotion and using it to bring about your own purposes can feel kind of, I don't know, slimy or something to people. Is that the case or no?
No, I think very few people use it for Machiavellian purposes, right? So it's not at all along those lines. It's more about being able to understand that we are relational people. We want to be in service to others, right? Whether it's professionally or personally, with our children, with our partners, with our coworkers, you have to establish relationships and understand what is meaningful and purposeful to you. And I think that people sometimes over engineer emotional intelligence, thinking that it needs to be more than it is. I mean, it's certainly a part of who we are when we're interacting with others. So if I want to handle stress at work, how is my stress tolerance? How can I, when things are happening, am I able to make decisions without emotions overriding my ability to make decisions and move forward? Independent thinking is part of emotional intelligence. Can I make decisions at work or in my own life without emotions taking over the ability to be independent in thought? Do I need others? Assertiveness is another part of emotional intelligence. Can I tell you what I'm thinking with respect to you have emotions? There's a big difference between assertive and aggressive, right? Aggressive is I'm going to tell you what I think and I don't care about how you perceive that. Assertive is I'm cognizant of how there's someone else in the room, and so I'm able to communicate what I need to you, but in respect to how you might feel. So it starts to be more about in service to others and being true to yourself. And so that's what I really was taken back by, because I noticed that the financial advisors that we worked with were always in service to others. I mean, to a T, when we talk to financial advisors and ask them why they got in the business, it was always to help others. And so when you have sort of that servant leadership style, it really enables you to say, okay, well, how can I interact with people in a more meaningful way? How can I, have these relationships that are built on trust? And that makes you absolutely take a step back and say, okay, I now need to respect how others are receiving this information or feeling or how emotions are impacting them. So I think it's that also mutual respect of one another's, in that it enables you to build this trusting relationship and also thrive as a financial advisor and a client and be able to accomplish the goals, because investing is stressful. Investing causes anxiety. It doesn't always work the markets aren't linear. You have to be able to ride the waves. And sometimes you need someone that understands that emotions might be involved in some of that. And what can you do about it? How can you help them?
Yeah. So let's talk at the general level first, and then kind of drill down to the specific financial services level. Why do you think EQ, right, is important for leaders and individuals broadly? And then why is it perhaps, or is it extra important in the world of financial services?
Sure. So a lot of automation is happening across business. So we're seeing this, we're seeing disruption with Chat GPT or AI more broadly. We're also seeing workflow automation, right? Digital transformation is allowing tasks to be automated. So while we're gaining productivity from that perspective, one thing has not been able to be replaced. How you build a relationship and how you interact with others is still very important in the workplace across all sectors. And so the workforce of the future needs these types of soft skills, you might call them, to be able to interact with others while you have additional productivity through workflow automation or, different generative learning and, different types of technologies that are going to help us work faster.
Yeah. So you found some really fascinating stuff, getting to your dissertation in specific. How set up that dissertation for us a little bit. Tell us sort of what you were looking at, the variables you were looking at, and then explain your findings around referrals and emotional intelligence.
Sure. So specifically, I was looking to, I'll back up and set the context of the story a little bit. So we were running, at the time I had marketing and practice management, and you and I were delivering practice management through the Center for Outcomes. And that was something that we were able to get the privilege of working with financial advisors and help them understand how behavioral finance was a component of investing and how it impacted their practice. And through the journey of your actual presentations, I wanted to find where my space was and what was interesting to me. And so when I was on your counterpart on the marketing side, it was really understanding that relationship between the advisor and the client that I was particularly curious about. Because as a marketer, there's a lot of psychology about human behavior and what we do and why we do, the colors we pick, the decisions we make. And so that was an area that naturally I was very curious about. And so everyone was like, are you going to be a little Dr. Daniel? And I was like, no, I'm going to be Dr. Allie, my own self, but it was very complimentary to the work we were doing. And it was down that path of understanding how that relationship went together and how it worked that I discovered emotional intelligence. And so to me, that was an area that I was very interested of because it just was very natural. I love to people watch. I love to sit and just understand or observe what people are doing in a crowded room. And so naturally, that was something that it was like, okay, is this an area that I think I might want to spend the next 5 years studying again? And so it was. And so thankfully, this has become my third child, I like to joke, because it was definitely a labor of love. And so when I went on the journey of studying the financial advisor and the client relationship, I was looking to understand the emotional intelligence level of the financial advisor and how it impacts the client relationship, specifically referrals and retention. And so advisors grow their business, obviously, through a referral system from existing clients, but also retaining existing business. And so as I studied financial advisors and their level of emotional intelligence, I found that the ones with higher emotional intelligence actually had 2 times more referrals into their business than advisors with lower emotional intelligence. And so that was something that to me was very interesting because it naturally made sense that if I am building a trusting client relationship by listening to you and being empathetic to your needs, but also asserting my authority where I need to because you trust me to give you good advice as an advisor, then I might tend to speak out more loudly to other friends of mine and refer business to you. And so it did show through in the research findings. So that was very interesting to me.
So 2 times, let me restate that. So 2 times the level of referrals for those with the highest emotional intelligence?
Yes. So, yes.
Wow.
And I think that advisors intuitively, the ones that understand that they are there to help people, that they need to build a trusting relationship, that they need to listen actively, they need to assert their authority when needed in a way that's very respectful to the people hearing it and receiving that information, have found that they are the ones that naturally have those skills or have honed those skills, whether they know it's emotional intelligence or not. There's certain areas that are very prevalent in an advisor's business that I think, help them display these traits, these soft skill traits in a successful manner to be able to grow their business that way. So now I'm trying to gain awareness of like, why don't you learn more about this, or teach, the folks in the office that you're like, wow, that person does not have people skills. Why don't we send them to some training and get them to understand how this works?
So, all of this kind of begs the question, because every advisor who's listening to this now, their ears just perked up dramatically, because I don't think there's anyone who wouldn't like to double their level of referrals. Is emotional intelligence, did you do any sort of nature-nurture research in your dissertation? Like to what extent is this born versus made?
So it's a great question, and I really have it broken down into 4 areas because I think I have observed over the years, there's 2 types of advisors, right? There's the advisors that are the front of the house advisors that naturally are more outgoing, that work with the client. They're more forward facing, front of the house advisors. And then there's the back of the house team that might be managing the investments and might be doing more technical conversations. And so I have it broken down into 4 areas. So if you have technical proficiency, so more back of the house, you might need higher self-regard where you're confident in your skills to do the job. So I think that, you said nature versus nurture, but I really feel it's more activating different parts of emotional intelligence that are more natural to your job and what you're doing. So if you want that technical proficiency, you need to be high in self-actualization, right? You have to be a lifelong learner. If you want to know the latest tax code, you have to actually want to dive into Social Security and tax planning and different investments, right? When crypto came out, you had to learn how do you meaningfully, what is it? How do I put this into a client portfolio? Same with alts, same with AI. How does this impact? So this notion of technical proficiency actually is aligned with the emotional intelligence element of self-actualization, being a lifelong learner and having high self-regard. I regard myself as a professional. I'm confident in what I do. The second area is that relationship building. So that might be a very natural part of the business for some, right? They're very empathetic. Empathy is another element of emotional intelligence. I can put myself in your shoes and really listen to you and try to feel what you're feeling and understand how that might be impacting the decision you need to make. So empathy is a big part of the relationship building, but that might not come naturally for some people. I know colloquially, people will say women are more empathetic than men. It's not necessarily the truth. I just think that people sometimes are better at that. And emotional intelligence is a skill you can learn. So it's 100%. You can teach yourself to be empathetic by being more active, activating your listening skills and working at it. And so I think that that's another way that advisors have been able to learn about emotional intelligence and be able to implement it in their practice. Another area is working on the business, right? So many financial advisors are what they call accidental business owners, right? They come into the business to help people, and now all of a sudden they're a manager and they have payroll and systems and ops and working with custodians, and they have a lot of operational things that they need to do in the business. So working on the business, you might need really good problem-solving skills, which is another element of emotional intelligence. And you need to be able to handle stress, because a lot of those things aren't the work that they enjoy doing most of the time. So you have to be able to have good stress tolerance. And then the fourth part is business development. You also have to promote your business in the marketplace, right? And so people have to know you're in for business. So sometimes you have to do marketing as a RAA or a financial advisor firm to promote your business and what the skills you have and what you're doing. And so you have to have this level of optimism, right? I mean, if you are a business owner, you have to be optimistic about the future. That's another element of emotional intelligence that they can activate. And they have to be able to assert their value proposition and talk about it in the marketplace. So you can kind of see it doesn't matter if you're front of the house or back of the house or where you fall in the advisory business. These are areas that are woven throughout your daily life. You just might not have known that those are parts of emotional intelligence. And I think that that's something that giving more voice to that is very important.
Yeah, that's a brilliant segmentation there. So there's a couple of things I heard there. First of all, I think you left us with no excuse, right? Like if we're not great at emotional intelligence, what I heard you say is that this is something that can be learned, and I want to talk about that in a minute. And then second, you kind of broke it down. I mean, emotional intelligence is this multifaceted thing, and different parts of sort of the advice ecosystem, different pieces of emotional intelligence are more or less important. If someone wants to work on this, because I think this is going to be one of those things that can get hard to get your arms around, right? Like, is a 1 or 2 day course going to be enough? Like, is reading a book going to be enough? It feels like there's a didactic element to this, but there's also an experiential kind of relational element to this where you got to just get out there and live it. How do those two worlds combine to really give enduring, meaningful EQ kind of based education?
Sure. So I have what you can do today, what you can do tomorrow, and what you can do next week, right? So really what you can do today is just take a look at yourself and actually look at what are the things that trigger you emotionally, and where do you perceive your strengths and weaknesses in some of these areas? I mean, obviously assessments are available, and that's the work that I do on an individual basis, but you don't necessarily need to go if you just want to be curious and start to explore the topic, because it is so true. As you take many, many flights and you hear the flight attendant say, put your oxygen mask on first, you have to start with you. There's a huge element of self-care and being able to understand who you are, know thyself. And I think that that is the first step forward. So today you can just say, let me take a look and journal. What are the things that give me joy? What are the things that trigger me? Just start to observe where you enjoy spending your time and where you're getting tripped up. So those are some of the things that you can start with today, is just look inward. And then something you can do tomorrow is go find someone that you want to be that you want to emulate. Find a role model that does something really well in your business. And, a lot of people look at you, Daniel, as someone that you're very good at articulating. I know you're shaking your head, but they do. They look at you as someone who has done a tremendous job of taking very complex topics and being able to explain them in a way that people can easily understand. So find a role model. Like, I love Simon Sinek. I know he's been around for a while, but he is really good at explaining how purpose can be infused in everything you do. And so, it's along the lines of not necessarily fake it as you make it, but there's an element of that. Look at someone, find someone that has those traits that you're looking. So if you want to be better at empathy, well, follow Brene Brown, darn it, right? I mean, find someone that is really good at what they do and follow them. We have that capabilities on LinkedIn, on blogs. There's so many resources. So if you know that that's something that you're not very good at, get out there and actually, find a role model that you can emulate till you can start to hone those skills. And then I would just say down the road, get ready to get uncomfortable, because nowhere in the universe did growth ever come where it was easy. If you want to grow, sometimes that pruning process that you have to go through is a little painful. And if you're a leader, you're not afraid to get a little bit uncomfortable during the growth season. And I think you take it and you just say, you know what, I'm going to do that. And that is so true on working out, on eating well. It's the same line of thinking is along professional growth. And so get ready to get uncomfortable. And once you get through the other side, you're a better person for it.
Yeah, this is a really brilliant framework. When we look at why behavior change fails, a lot of times it's because we get excited about something, we try and do too much too fast, right? So you listen to this podcast, you go, I want to double my referrals, read every book on emotional intelligence, take every course. But I love your framework, right? First thing, look in the mirror, do a little introspection. Second thing, get a role model that's not me. I think about Hunter S. Thompson. So before he wrote Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, I cannot remember, which is making this story worse. He typed out by hand one of the great American novels, right? He typed out by hand, I feel like maybe it was The Great Gatsby or something, by hand to get the feel of writing a great novel. And I've always loved that story, right? Like you take this and just to get in the zone, I'm going to type 300 or 400 pages of someone else's work to just know what greatness feels like. And I love your suggestion to do that with emotional intelligence. Pick that model. And then, take it next level. Get ready to get uncomfortable. Call Allie, take the course, jump in, join a group, whatever. Yep. I think it's a really practical way to get started. So no podcast would be complete without discussing AI. And, I've been working on a couple of presentations this morning, and I'm looking at sort of think about Maslow's hierarchy, right? You think about the base of Maslow's hierarchy. It's all of our physical needs, our safety needs, food, shelter, all this stuff. And then as we move higher up Maslow's hierarchy, we got friendship, love, belonging, self-actualization. For most of human history, we've been duking it out in the bottom two rungs of Maslow's hierarchy. I mean, I've been looking back. The homicide rate in Italy in the 1500s was 70%, right? So, for many, many years, life was nasty, brutish, and short, right? Like life was violent, life was hungry and dirty. And we are to a point now where I think a huge shift is changing, right? We farm more than 2,000 calories per person per day now. Now, we're not distributing it equally, right? We still have work to do there. But there's enough food for everyone on the planet to eat well. And yet we see now that obesity kills far more people than hunger. You go for so much of human history, war and violence were this huge cause of death. And we now have far more people dying from suicide than from war, right? So our problems, not universally, but many of our basic problems are being solved, right? Like sort of the blocking and tackling of human existence, especially in a developed country. It's never been easier to get enough to eat or to find a warm place to live. And yet you see this spiritual sickness, this relational sickness, right? So long preamble to say AI is coming, right? But we know that a lot of what AI does is the blocking and tackling, right? AI can do, standardization. It can do rote stuff. It can do math. It can do memorization. But how does it impact people? And in the age of AI, what's the place of the human first advisor?
I think that it'll be interesting to see first some of the presentations you come out with this, because I love the new fresh research. So this is good. This is good. Yeah, it is heavy. It's heavy stuff. So I believe that yes, these are tools available to us, just like all of the things in history have been tools to help us survive and thrive, right? But it's not that replacement, as you would say, for the human advice. There will be a point. So what I think is interesting, if done properly, there will be a place for technology to lead an investor up to the point where then they know they need to flip it over to a human to finish it, the last mile, and be able to close the relationship and being able to foster a human relationship and be able to keep the client invested. But there's technology that's going to help the advisor run faster and be able to serve the client in a way that they want to. I mean, some of the technology is meant to be more convenient to our lifestyle anyway. So I don't know that it's this dire situation where the advisor's value is diminished, because if you still want someone to talk to, you still aren't going to want to talk to Chat GPT, even though now it can talk to me, which, it's, we know there's errors and bugs in that, and so I don't look at it as, I know some people are very concerned about it, but I think because I've worked with so many advisors and now I've worked at the tech firms that are trying to make it easier for advisors, I look at this as an opportunity to really excel at what you do. I mean, if this is what you were born to do, was to help people, well, maybe now you can help more, because technology is carrying the burden of some of the things that you didn't have time to do before. So I'm doubling down on, the fact that it feels really good when you actually have a conversation with someone, whether it's over Zoom or in person. You have And we taught this. There's this transference when we're connecting and we're telling stories, and we're able, like, we are the human computer is connecting with the other human computer, and our brains are activating. And I don't know that has ever changed. That is something that has gone on through history. That's where we get traditions and oral history of stories and cultural customs and things of that. So I don't know that any of that's changing. I think just the way we daily interact with people will have more chatbots and more automation. And then at some point we'll hit, 0, I need a person. I'm ready. Or it will say, you need to talk to an advisor. And this is where the AI programs are helping guide some folks that might be able to, because, candidly, we've been serving the mass affluent very well, Daniel, but we haven't been serving the lower income needs, right? We forget them because they're not valuable sometimes to our business. And I think this is the great equalizer. I think this gives the opportunity for technology to help find the people that need advice, and you're calling and giving them advice when they need that. And so I'm bullish and optimistic on it, not doom and gloom.
Yeah, I see so many nuggets in what you just said there. First of all, there will be this proliferation of chatbots and other things that will try and address sort of easily addressable FAQ type questions, and that's fine. But all that does is make us hungrier for a person.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you've ever interacted with a chatbot or been, dial 2 for whatever, and then you get to a human, it's just this immense sense of relief. So I think the proliferation of chatbots and the like only makes human advice that much more powerful. I think it frees up some of the tedious parts of advisory work to allow folks to be more present and more human. And then, like at Orion, we're combining our personality assessments with our reporting to do customized reporting. We marry it up with ChatGPT, and then we're able to communicate portfolio changes, portfolio comparisons in a way that speaks very directly to the things that our clients value, sort of their actual personalities. So I think in some ways it will give advisors an aid that will increase their ability to humanize the process. I think we talk about it in an overly binary way. Like,
correct.
Will it be the human advisor or will it be AI that'll win the day? Like, it'll be the tech-enabled human advisor, right?
Yeah. And that is a trend that is on point and very important for anyone in the advisory business to just embrace it. Like, you can't fight this. The trend is human and tech enabled, and that will be the way forward. But why don't you want to be more productive? I mean, these are tools that are available to us. So let's leverage them. Let's harness the technology. And the next generation of financial advisors are going to be absolutely amazing, because they're going to take everything that we're building for our kids, they're going to take it and make it that much better and cooler and, just a fabulous experience. But we have to give them the fundamentals of this is how you actually interact with a person and how we have meaningful conversations. So it doesn't negate the soft skills. Don't go away, no matter how tech enabled you are. It just makes you appreciate the technology, because now your time is just spent just so much more productively, in my opinion.
For sure. So, we refer to this, my home, as the house that Ali built for the reasons that I talked about earlier. So it wouldn't be very neighborly of me to have you on the show and not give you a moment to talk about the work that you're doing now. Talk to us about Amplify Your Voice. Talk to us about fractional CMO work and how you marry this up with your doctoral degree in emotional intelligence. Not something every fractional CMO has.
No. So I feel like fractional has not been a new idea, but it's been very prevalent for many, many, many years with chief financial officers, right? Fractional CFOs is very common. I feel like in the spring of this year, I started to notice in my marketing groups that it was gaining in quite a bit of popularity from the CMO perspective. So on the marketing side of the business. And it was around April, I decided that this was somewhere where I was going to pursue that full time. And so I opened and started Amplify Your Voice to take, 20 plus years of marketing and practice management and hanging out, drinking Diet Cokes with you, Daniel, at many, many meetings, dreaming up great ideas and really put that into practice. And Amplify Your Voice is a fractional CMO shop where I am the fractional CMO for financial services or tech or advisory type firms. So if you can't afford me full time, you get a portion of my time, and you get the benefit of me working with many other types of clients to make you better at what you do. And the emotional intelligence comes in because that's where the mentorship and the training comes in. So regardless of what I'm working on, I look at life through the lens of emotional intelligence. So I'm bringing this deep understanding of how the target audiences you want to serve operate, and how you can reach them better, and how you can talk to your team better, and how you can talk to, everyone you work with, whether it's internal or externally. So that is the blending. And I get to, stay with my two passions. And I think that is something that I will continue to love the work I do. And now I get to do it full time. It was very hard to flex the EQ muscles when I was doing CMO work full time. But now I'm able to easily blend it because I'm able to, take the time with a company and really find out what they need and bring my talents accordingly. So that's been great and very, very meaningful.
So I'm working on a deck for the Nitrogen, the artist formerly known as Riskalize.
Sure.
Presentation that I have coming up, and the title of it is "The Future is Behavioral." And I talk about how insights into behavioral science, insights into sort of fundamental human nature are improving industries from marketing to health to tech and sort of on finance, clearly. And I just can't overstate how important it is for your CMO to have a deep understanding of how people work. And it's such an unusual skill set, but I think it's one that we're going to see more and more of, and one that certainly served you well. So, Ali, you're the best. If people want to get in touch with you, where would you send them to learn more about your work?
Sure. So the website's amplifyyourvoice.studio, and I welcome any conversation on it. I'm Ali at amplifyyourvoice.studio. So happy to chat with anyone. So would love to connect. That's what I do, right?
Well, no one better to connect with than the person who studied connecting and the power of connecting on the lives of advisors. Dr. Ali, thank you for coming and sharing your wisdom with us today. Thank you again.
Thanks for tuning in to Standard Deviations. If you can't wait till next week for more behavioral finance insights, visit www.orion.com. All opinions expressed by Dr. Daniel Crosby and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of or endorsement by Orion and its affiliates, subsidiaries, and employees. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for legal, tax, and investment decisions. The opinions are based upon information the participants consider reliable.